The thing I love most about my flat in that building is that I'm in the same building as other missionaries. I'm not alone. We share a liturgical life.
You're spending 5 minutes with a missionary. This podcast is a window into missionary life. It's fun, it's personal, it's real, and it's always an adventure. During Season 1, LCMS missionaries serving around the globe consider the topic of home. Today, we'll hear from Deaconess Sandra Rhein, a missionary in the Asia region. Sandra assists in developing hymnals in local languages, fosters the appreciation of church music, and helps train church musicians. However, her home is a bit different than the typical missionary.
My name is Sandra Rhein. I travel to Asia 3 times a year and stay about 6 weeks at a time. Taiwan is my home base. My work takes me to several countries in Southeast Asia. Previously to this call to Asia, the countries I traveled to most frequently were Kenya and Ethiopia. When I was assisting with a hymnal in Ethiopia, I made many trips there, staying a few weeks at a time. So when I talk about what it's like to live overseas, part of my story is describing what it's like to live with a missionary family. I always feel like the luckiest missionary to get to do this. It's a huge treat. For one thing, they already know a lot about the culture, so it can help me figure things out. They probably know the language. They probably cook a combination of local cuisine and more typical American food. I love to discover the foods of different cultures, and I'm not a picky eater. Finally, this situation gives me a great opportunity to serve that family. So, for instance, I can talk to the missionary family well ahead of time to find out what stuff they need or want from the U.S. and fill one of my 2 suitcases with those items. Do you know how great it feels to be able to deliver needed items, Christmas presents, or even Oreos and granulated sugar? One of the things I've come to treasure when staying with other missionaries is participating in their family prayer life. I'm with a family long enough to get used to their rhythm of life. So there's one family who has older children, and first thing in the morning, everyone's getting ready to head out the door, and morning devotions are impractical, but they have a habit to say Luther's morning prayer in the car before starting any conversation. Another family uses an app on their phone to accompany their hymn singing. Another family has their devotion after the evening meal when the day's work is basically done. The sun is setting, and people mostly don't leave their homes after dark in third world countries. So life slows down, and there is time not just for devotions, but for longer discussions. It's a great opportunity for catechesis. When I'm in Asia, my home is a flat in the Luther building in Jiayi, Taiwan. This is a furnished flat. I guess it's not what you would describe as homey at first. The floors are a dull tile, and there aren't rugs or pictures or plants. So what do I do to make it feel more comfortable or homey? First off, I bring a tiny Bluetooth speaker and fill the place with music. Classical music, church music, folk songs. I also set up a music stand and bring some music and probably a soprano recorder because that's the most portable and practical instrument to toss in my suitcase, so then I can play music also. Coffee makes any place smell welcome, and it is important enough to me that among my travel necessities are individual packets of coffee and a camping-style water heater so that all I need is electricity and I've got coffee. The thing I love most about my flat in that building is that I'm in the same building as other missionaries. I'm not alone. We share a liturgical life. We see each other every day. We pray together in the chapel. The community life is priceless. Over the years, I've had a variety of experiences with living conditions. That's an area where one does need to be flexible. Several years ago, a pastor with whom I was working invited me to stay with him and his family at their home. This was a native pastor. It was a generous offer, which I gladly accepted. They had just 2 bedrooms, so I shared a bedroom with their 2 young children. The room was just large enough for the 2 twin-size beds, so the girl gave up her bed for me and slept with her brother. And those 2 beds used up most of the space, so the only way for me to open my suitcase was to lay it on my bed. Otherwise, it stood up and just fit between the foot of my bed and the wall. The larger pans and bowls for cooking were stored under my bed, so at the crack of the dawn, the cook would sneak in to retrieve what she needed to start her work. So, like I said, be ready to be flexible. Another time, I stayed several days in a hotel in Medan in Indonesia. The hotel was unusually quiet during the day, and I had the impression there must not be many rooms rented out. Then, around midday, activity seemed to be picking up, especially around the restaurant. They were setting up buffet tables, putting tablecloths on extra tables. People started arriving. They were all dressed to the nines, and I thought maybe there was a wedding reception. By early evening, food was out everywhere, and people were even beginning to line up and pile their plates high with food, but still not eating. At some point, a gong sounded, and as if on cue, everyone dug in with eating and celebrating. That's when I realized what was happening. The gong had marked sunset, and these were Muslims who had been fasting since dawn, observing the feast of Ramadan. Every night that week, they had these feasts that went on for hours. So in this case, my temporary home gave me a first-hand, interesting look at that particular non-Christian culture. While working with Lutherans in several places around the world forces some extra flexibility and patience, the blessings of relationships with Lutherans all over is a rich and precious gift.
Thanks for spending 5 minutes with a missionary. To learn more about Deaconess Sandra, go to lcms.org/Rhein. You can also sign up for her newsletter using the link in the show notes. You can find this podcast on kfuo.org/missionary podcast or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join the LCMS International Mission community on Facebook or Instagram at LCMS International Mission.